Hello, my name is Micaiah, and this today will be my first video on YouTube. I plan to make a set of videos in the near future covering topics such as health, nutrition, fitness in general, and then just some topics that are akin to my personality and my personal interests. This particular video is going to be centered around a topic of personal value to me, my hair, particularly hair loss. My hair is very precious to me, and it always has been. It's been one of the things that's is quite important to me in terms of my confidence and how I value my personal look and appeal. And it's always been something that I've made constant effort in the past. So any level of hair loss is enough to bother me. But yeah, I'll start with where it began. I probably got to about, I'd say 27, between 27 and 29, before I started realising for myself. Others had pointed things out in the past, and I always took it as a joke because they don't mean any harm by bringing it up. I won't say I wasn't offended, because obviously I was, and shocked that people would be pointing it out, enough for them to notice. So yeah, I decided to start looking into it and taking pictures, and just trying to see what everyone else could see at the same time. So one of the first things that I remember thinking at the time was that there's medicine for everything nowadays. If there's a problem, you can talk to someone, and within a short space of time you can find a solution. And if you can't, sometimes you have to chalk these things down and deal with the consequences of if you were deciding to go further than medication. And I won't lie, one of the first things that I thought was that I was going to have to get some sort of graft from the back of the head to the front, and I'm sure for some this is an option. I treated this as something that I may have to go towards, but eventually I sided with that would be almost a band-aid or a temporary solution, and the genuine issue at play is more so hormonal. So I decided to look more so into the hormonal issues, and do a little bit of research. So yeah, the internet's a powerful place where you can find a lot of information. I'm sure lots of misinformation too, lots of confusion, and people who really shouldn't be giving advice. But I stuck to forums and places where not everyone would choose to go and look for this kind of information. I looked for studies, and I quite often found a lot of studies that I was comfortable reading over. But one of the first options that came to mind, that comes to mind that I found initially after looking at surgery, would be minoxidil. So the 5% solution is usually a topical solution. There are other forms of how you can apply it, but the topical solution is an oil, and you place that on the area or region where there is thinning at the time, and over a period of months you would start to see progress. Months may be too long for some, but I was willing to hold on for as long as possible. Initially I remember thinking that minoxidil was a great solution for me, and I was going to start using minoxidil, but the reason I changed my mind is, once again, I did feel as though there would be a hormonal issue that I would encounter in the future if I had decided to use something that was more so treating at the scalp level. So eventually I looked into other ways to inhibit hormones that were causing the male pattern baldness, and so because of where I was balding at the front, some in the temples and in the center region, and towards the back also of the scalp, but progressively and slowly, I'd say. It took a few years for me to properly notice. So yeah, finasteride seemed like it would be something where you could treat the issue at play, and not so much dance around it, wasting your own time, and inevitably it catching up to you in the future. So a little bit of information on finasteride. It's also known under two brand names of Proscar and Propecia. Originally it was used to treat enlarged prostates. And the dosage at the time would have been something like 5 milligrams, which is 5 times the total dosage when used in a hair loss context. So it was approved for use of hair loss in 1992. And yeah, not to get too sciencey, but the DHT that's in your system at the time can be inhibited up to 70% with 1 milligram. And for most this is okay, and even lower amounts are shown effectiveness, which is more or less where I led myself into further research to find out whether I would need a full tablet, or whether that could be something that could be toyed with in the future. But to start myself, I started at 1 milligram, and I did want this to be something that I tried for at least a few months before I made my mind up. And if it was affected hormonally or in some sort of physical way, or even mentally, then I could easily just stop. So yeah, I spoke to an online pharmacy, including other medical minds, on advice and just any other options that were out there. And because of the way that I had described the thinning, all had agreed that the best option for me would be finasteride, unless I sided with perhaps going abroad or somewhere else to get a surgery done for a graft. So the side effects for finasteride, at 1 milligram, a lot of people have reported very frequent reports of things like erectile dysfunction, impotence, decreased libido, and ejaculation disorder. And to follow up on that, the long-term effects sometimes are reported as post-finasteride syndrome. So perhaps when people discontinue the use of finasteride, they still have lingering side effects. And it's not clear whether through the medical information out there whether this is directly attributed to finasteride, and it's probably something I can't comment on personally, but with the information there, at least you can be aware that this is something that exists at least. So yeah, 6 months I bought into, and this cost me about £60 to £65 at the time, including the postage and packaging, and this was one of the cheapest sellers that I could find. Originally I did find a video on YouTube with someone who was suggesting Superdrug, and I remember looking at the time and it was quite pricey, or at least more pricey than this, and that includes a lot of other pharmacies too. This is one of the cheapest I've found so far. So to talk a little bit on my experience with finasteride, I started in August 2020. I was just about to go away. It was close to my birthday, and it was a surprise from my friends and my partner, and all weren't, apart from my partner, she was aware, but not everyone was aware of how bad the issue was. So kind of like masking it, or at least discussing it with people, was something that I didn't really do properly. And I was a little bit fearful when I did find out that I was going to be going away, because there were situations like that came to mind, like swimming, or just having hair that was wet in general. It shows the scalp a lot easier, and thinness just kind of it's instantly revealed. I tried to let go of that, of course, and just enjoy myself, which I did. And within the first 2 weeks of taking finasteride, I was away. So I still carried on taking finasteride every day. I did have some side effects, and one of the side effects that I noticed immediately was the viscosity of my sperm. So it was very watery and thin, and to point out, this only actually lasted for an additional week, so maybe into the third or fourth week I'd almost had no traceable side effects, and so I was quite happy with this, and I was happy to continue, of course. In terms of hair growth and progression that I can document and have pictures and images of since December 2020 and January 2021 were where I started to see some form of progression in terms of density. So the overall colour would look a lot better because of how the fullness would appear. And some of the areas where it would be very thin were now just thin. And some of the areas that were just thin are now kind of like padded out to like a normal density. And I was quite happy with this, of course. No one had commented on it yet, and to myself, I think that it probably was only me that was looking at it with the amount of criticism that I was. But looking forward just a few months, April, May this year, 2021, so people had started to point out, where I'd had discussions with them in the past, that they had noticed changes, which obviously made me feel quite comfortable and happy. But noticing yourself is probably the most important thing, and I did notice immediately, and I was very happy, and I still am. I'm still holding on, as though it's quite dear to me, and important to stay on top of it and get ahead. I would say that the comparison between December last year and current date is enough progress to be hopeful that there would be some yet to come. My expectations are still that I don't expect all of my hair back, and that would be foolish to expect that. But the current rate, I feel like there's a lot of progress, and it's making me feel quite good. So the hair care routine I adopt now is something that I probably would go over in greater detail in another video. I'd like to keep these short, where I possibly can. But to add to something in this video, I actually use a pill cutter to lessen the dosage now. And the dosage that I've been on since January 2021 is 0.5 milligrams. So half a milligram, sorry. There is a DHT inhibition curve that I will include, and it shows from one end of 0.2 milligrams all the way to, I think, 5 milligrams. And 5 milligrams in the context of an enlarged prostate, the treatment that you would use for that, 5 milligrams is apparently sufficient for that, but the total amount of DHT that can be inhibited is roughly around 70%, and that doesn't differ from 1 milligram to 5, but between 0.2 and 1 milligram, the difference is a few percent, so we're talking maybe 5% or less. So I decided in December, January, to side with just taking 0.5 milligrams, half a tablet, and the pill cutter that I used, I'll include a link for in the description. But yeah, it's just one click, it's a clean cut, there's no mess, no powder, and yeah, it's just easier. And eventually it costs less. That's one of the additional positives. It was not what I was aiming for. For myself, I just saw that I didn't need 1 milligram, and if there were any potential side effects that were yet to come in the future, or like way ahead of time, then at least I can slightly get ahead of that too. But for anyone looking to just lessen the possible side effects, or even maybe costs, yeah, this is a good way. But yeah, I'll include that below. And then the last thing that I will go over in greater detail is just things that I take additionally alongside it, supplement-wise. And I may even include any kind of other details that might go along to help for yourselves. So yeah, thank you.